It's Todd of Todd's Workshops here, and today we're going to be talking about throwing darts. So what you've got is a steel head with a very distinctive flared out barb to it, an ash shaft. I guess historically they may have used pine depending on where they were, not something we would choose now, and then large feather fletchings. These certainly they were seen and talked about with Irish mercenaries, 15th, 16th century. Again, there's actually quite a number of manuscript pictures of these things being used across Europe, really. So this is obviously quite a common weapon, but one that we just don't know anything about. No existing examples in museums that we know of. They have excavated one off the Mary Rose for sure, or maybe several. So we know that they were used, and you can see it in the manuscripts as well. They were used in naval warfare because they're very good for dropping onto enemies' decks. One reason for that is that if you had a conventional spear that relies on the thrower to throw it clean and straight, if it hits rigging on the way down, it might start to tumble. Whereas something with fletching, if it hits rigging on the way down, it will just re-straighten. So for naval warfare, these are fabulous. But actually, they use them battlefield as well. This one here, steel head, as you would expect, obviously, flared out, about a 20mm diameter, 3/4 inch ash shaft. And 220mm 7-inch goose feather fletchings. Whole thing weighing in at 370 grams. I don't know what that is in ounces. Taking a stab in the dark here, off the top of my head. 14 ounces, 13 ounces, something like that. And so it can throw quite well. Why they've got the fletchings on, I don't know. My assumption here is if you're trained and you can throw a spear well, you can throw it flat and true. So my assumption is that these are probably used either in quantity that you're throwing them so quick you haven't really got time to concentrate, or otherwise they're being thrown by largely untrained soldiers, which that goes against the idea, of course, of Irish mercenaries using them. So it's a little bit of a confusion. And part of that as well is you'll see a notch here, and that can be used in conjunction with a throwing string. There's no evidence at all from any of the manuscript pictures that they use the throwing string. And I'll show you what that is in a little bit. But it's a device that has been known, Stone Age times, with the equivalent of an atlatl throwing stick. Does the same job. So it's a device that would have been known and works very well with lightweight projectiles. Like I say, this one's about 370 grams. So you would think that they would use them, but there's no evidence of it. So what I've done is I brought in my niece, Lara, who can throw. She throws Javelin for Cambridge University. I have many skills. Throwing is not one of them, which you will see in a minute. And so you can compare Lara, who can throw well, with myself who can't. So you can have a look at the distance there. But then also I compare my straight throw of this thing with using a throwing string. So you can have a look at the difference that it makes in distance there. But anyway, it's a very effective weapon, and they were carried maybe 2 or 3 or 4 at a time by generally sort of fairly light troops, who presumably would just hurl them over just prior to engagement. It looks like you get unskilled, like myself. I can get about 20 odd meters with a throw, which is rubbish. Lara was getting, I think, 28, just short of 30 meters. So, we can assume that sort of 30 meters would be a good range. So, very formidable weapon. And from the fighting tops of ships, a fantastic thing. So let's go down to the hedge line. We'll go to the next stage of this. We'll see Lara throwing, and we'll just talk you through what we're doing. there you go. So it's a throwing dart. Popular, really, as far as I can tell. There's quite a few pictures of them all across Europe, 15th, 16th century, certainly on ships. Just an intriguing thing, very easy to throw. You can't really throw it wrong because of the flights on the back. So a very effective weapon to be carrying 2 or 3 of these and toss them at your enemy before you engage. Thank you. My friend Jed, who also coincidentally does the editing on these videos, was looking at the footage, being a very wise guy. He actually spotted something that I think is worth adding. So we're just going to talk about that very briefly at the end here. So this was about the throwing spear, or throwing dart. Now I was saying that a device that's known for mankind for millennia is the throwing string. So what that is, it's just a loop that you put on your finger or twist around, and then there's just a knot on the end of that cord. You pop it around, pull it tight, and that will just lock down on the cord, and that allows you then to hold the spear. You can hold it. The cord will increase the distance that you're able to throw it. So I was getting, I think, another 8 or 10 meters, something like that. The point that Jed was making, and I think is absolutely valid, is actually this process. I'll show you in a close-up, but the process is really quite a fiddly one. And in the heat of battle, is that something that you can do? If you're preparing for a hunt, then yeah, fine, and you're going out hunting something. But actually in battle, it's going to be a pain. And anything which is difficult is just not going to work. And the point that Jed really made was that you're out of the immediate melee if you're behind there, even at 20 yards, if that's all you can throw it, 20 meters, or with the throwing string at 30 meters. So it doesn't make any difference to that. You're out of the melee, but you're still within bowshot anyway. So actually, tactically, the difference between 20 and 30 meters is probably not that relevant. But the tactical difference between completely fumbling it and not being able to throw your spear because you're trying to get a knot on, that is a big difference. So actually, I think Jed has nailed it. The reason you don't see these in any of the medieval manuscripts is they just didn't use them, which is the obvious answer, but I couldn't see why they wouldn't use them. But I think Jed is right. Yeah, just very simply, it would just not work. So